Spirit warriors, have you felt a strange stirring in your spirit lately, as if the atmosphere is shifting and something monumental is on the verge of breaking through? That's not just your imagination, it's a spiritual signal. Something is on the horizon, not by chance, but by divine design. The intensity of your recent trials isn't random. The spiritual warfare, the delays that made you question your path, the betrayals that cut deep, all of it was part of a sacred preparation. You were being refined, not punished. Think of Job, a man whose story is more than ancient history. It's a blueprint of resilience. Job lost everything, his children, his riches, and his health. Friends called him cursed, and even his wife told him to give up. But Job held on. He didn't plaster on a fake smile or pretend it didn't hurt. He mourned, he questioned, and he struggled. But he never abandoned his faith. And because of that unwavering trust, Job received a double portion of everything he lost. That's not just a Bible story, it's a prophetic mirror of what's unfolding in your life. You too are about to walk into your season of restoration. You've been walking a narrow path when no one was clapping, choosing righteousness when shortcuts were tempting, and sowing seeds of faith in silence. And guess what? Heaven noticed. As 1 Samuel 26:23 declares, "The Lord rewards everyone for their righteousness and faithfulness." God is not blind to the battles you fought in private. Every time you chose love over hate, patience over panic, and humility over ego, you were building a case for divine favor. And now the case is closed, the verdict is in. Your mission, the one assigned only to you, has been fulfilled, and God cannot withhold what he has promised any longer. You're not at the end, you're at a threshold, not done like defeated, but done like a soldier returning from war, scarred but victorious. This is your confirmation. The heavens are shifting, and your reward is not a matter of if, but when, and that when is now. You may not feel ready, but the anointing is already here. So stay alert. Watch this video to the very end, because in it we'll uncover the 7 divine reasons why this is your moment and how to step fully into your promised season. Your awakening, your restoration, your double portion, it's all tied to understanding what God is doing right now. Spirit warrior, don't you dare shrink back now. You're about to witness why all the pain had a purpose. Point 1, you stayed faithful in the fire. Spirit warriors, let me tell you something powerful. When the heat turned up in your life, you didn't run, you didn't fold, you didn't curse God and walk away. And that made all the difference. While others would have cracked under pressure, you stayed rooted. While others would have thrown fists at heaven, you lifted your hands in worship. And while they murmured, "Where is your God now?" you whispered back, "He's with me, even in this." That's what makes you a spirit warrior. You didn't need a sword or a stage. You battled silently, soul first. And guess what? Heaven saw you. The truth is, life doesn't test you when things are easy. No, the real test comes in the fire, in the job losses, the betrayals, the sleepless nights when your tears soak the pillow and no one knows the storm you're weathering. But God knew, God knows. That's not poetic fluff, Earth Angel. That's a spiritual fact. Psalm 56:8 says, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book." Imagine that. Not one tear wasted, not one moment of pain ignored. You cried in silence, but God heard every single sob like thunder in heaven. And here's the wild part. You didn't let bitterness take root in your heart. That's rare. Do you know how many people go through fire and come out bitter instead of better? But not you. You let the fire refine you, not define you. While others became hardened by pain, you became holy. While others closed their hearts, you kept yours open. And that, spirit warrior, is a dangerous kind of beautiful, because it means you still believe, you still hope, you still trust, even when the evidence says you shouldn't. And that level of faith, that shakes the kingdom of darkness, that rattles hell's gates. See, when you chose to worship in the wilderness, heaven stood still. Angels paused. Why? Because worship from the mountain is expected, but praise from the valley? That's divine defiance. That's rebellion against despair. You declared, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." And God whispered back, "I'm going to repay you." That word repay is not random. It's covenant talk. It's a promise from a just God who doesn't overlook the obedient. He saw you honor him when it didn't make sense. He watched you turn the other cheek when you could have clapped back. He observed your loyalty when you had every reason to walk away. And now the season is shifting. Payback is not petty, it's prophetic. Your harvest is not a fluke. It's a response to your faithfulness. Even science backs it up. Neurologically, when we choose faith over fear, we literally rewire our brains. Studies in neuroplasticity show that spiritual practices like prayer and meditation activate regions of the brain associated with peace, resilience, and purpose. That means your persistence in hope wasn't just spiritually powerful, it was biologically transformative. You didn't just survive, you evolved, so yes, spirit warrior, God saw it all. The nights you cried but got up anyway, the days you walked into rooms pretending to be okay when you were barely holding on, the times you prayed for others while bleeding inside. You kept showing up, you kept choosing love, you kept choosing Him. And now, something is coming, not just peace, but restoration, not just favor, but divine vindication, because the same God who allowed the fire is the one who walks with you in it and brings you out without a trace of smoke. Keep your head high, Earth Angel. You didn't run, you endured. And heaven has already released the word, I will repay. Point 2, you loved when it hurt. Let's be real, Earth Angel. Some of the people God told you to love, they were unlovable. The kind of people who made betrayal look like a hobby. The ones who smiled in your face while secretly resenting your light. People who drained your spirit, mocked your growth, and turned their backs when you needed them most. But still, you obeyed. Not because you were weak, but because you were divinely strong. You knew this wasn't about them, it was about you, your character, your assignment, your soul's alignment. See, love at a human level is often transactional. I'll love you if you love me. But the kind of love you poured out, that was heaven-level love. That was the kind of love that broke generational curses, healed hidden wounds, and confused the enemy. It's not easy to forgive people who never apologized. It's not easy to bless those who cursed you, but you did it. Not once, not twice, but again and again, even when it cost you sleep, tears, pride, and your last ounce of energy. And let's talk about that moment where you gave from your lack. You were already running on empty, emotionally, financially, spiritually, but someone needed you and you showed up. You were bleeding internally, but still chose to be someone else's bandage. That Earth Angel is supernatural obedience. That's spiritual maturity. That's what it means to walk in the spirit, not the flesh. Science will tell you that acts of compassion can trigger the release of oxytocin, the love hormone, improving health and creating emotional bonds. But what the science books don't always explain is the spiritual return on that investment. What you sowed in obedience is stored in the heavenly realm, measured not in dollars, but in favor. Every tear you cried while comforting others became a seed in God's garden. And heaven doesn't forget a seed sown in love. Don't be surprised that some of the people you helped are now pretending they did it alone. Don't be shocked that the ones you poured into now avoid you because your presence reminds them of their guilt. That's not your burden to carry. God saw everything, and while they forgot, heaven didn't. The blessings coming to you, they're not just good luck. They're divine payback, the open doors, the sudden opportunities, the favor that doesn't make sense. It's God repaying you for every moment you loved like Him. You were never called to be a doormat. You were called to be a doorway where people could see what radical love looks like in action. Jesus Himself said in Matthew 5:44, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. That wasn't a suggestion. It was a divine strategy, and you lived it. You embodied it. That's why the blessings coming your way will be loud, not for vanity, but for vindication. Because heaven is about to make a public announcement of your private obedience. And the same people who called you soft, naive, or too kind will soon realize they weren't dealing with someone ordinary. They were dealing with a spirit warrior, a divine vessel, a soul chosen by God to reflect His unconditional love on earth. So keep walking in that love, even when it hurts. Keep showing up, even when you're overlooked, because God is keeping score. And the scoreboard is about to flip in your favor. Heaven saw it all, and heaven always repays in abundance. Point 3. You chose righteousness over relevance. You had chances, Earth Angel. Oh yes, the path was wide and tempting. There were open doors, but they required you to leave your morals at the threshold. You could have clapped back, played dirty, climbed the social ladder by stepping on others, sold the truth for attention, and blended in just to be accepted. But you didn't. You chose the narrow road, the harder road, the holy road, the one fewer take, but the only one that leads to divine reward. That's not just poetic, it's factual. Studies in moral psychology show that people who consistently align with their core values, especially under pressure, experience greater long-term life satisfaction and mental clarity. You didn't pick the easy wins, you picked inner peace. You chose to remain set apart, even when it cost you relationships, opportunities, and sometimes even your reputation, because deep down, you knew something they didn't. What's built on lies will collapse, but what's built on truth, that's unshakable, unbothered, undeniable. While others chased quick applause and viral moments, you were busy building character in silence. While they bent their integrity to be seen, you stood your ground, knowing the right people, the real ones, would feel your authenticity. And that's the thing about authenticity. It doesn't shout, it radiates, it's a frequency. And those who are still stuck in masks can't stand it, not because you harmed them, but because your truth exposed their performance. You didn't sell out. You stood up, you said no when it was uncomfortable, you walked away from drama, didn't clap back at shade, and chose healing over hurting. An earth angel that made you powerful in the spirit realm, because that's where the real war is, not in the comments section, but in the unseen spiritual battlefield between ego and soul, pride and humility, status and service. Let's talk spiritual law. Galatians 6:9 says, "Let us not grow weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not." You didn't faint, you didn't fake it, and now the harvest is coming. And guess what? It's not just any blessing. It's the kind that shocks people because it will look sudden. But we both know it's been years in the making. You sowed seeds of discipline, kindness, patience, and faith. You watered it with tears, silence, and unwavering belief. And now God is flipping the script. See, your rise won't come from marketing or manipulation. It'll be a miracle. The kind no one can take credit for. The kind that makes people ask, wait, how did they get that position, that favor, that glow up? And that's when heaven smiles and says, because they didn't fold when it was hard, because they stayed clean when it was easy to get dirty. This is why the energy is shifting. You're stepping into a season where integrity is your elevator, where everything you didn't do is about to pay off. You didn't compromise, and now God is compensating, not just with stuff, but with spiritual authority, peace, divine timing, right connections, and favor that can't be explained. Let them be confused. Let them whisper. Let them wonder how you made it without shortcuts, because you know, and heaven knows, that staying true was never weakness. It was power under control, discipline with grace. And that, Earth Angel, is rare, so stand tall. Your integrity didn't go unnoticed. You're about to walk into blessings so undeniable, even your silence will sound like thunder. And when it happens, don't gloat, just smile, stay humble. Because the same integrity that got you there is the only thing that'll keep you there. Your crown wasn't bought with clout, it was forged in fire. Point 4. You kept going with no applause. No claps, no recognition, no applause, no shiny plaques or standing ovations. Just raw, soul-deep obedience. You kept walking on purpose when no one noticed. You gave when no one said thank you. You prayed in silence, cried in the dark, and still chose to serve with a pure heart. Earth Angel, what you've been doing wasn't for claps, it was for calling. And that kind of discipline, that kind of quiet loyalty to what's right, that's sacred, and heaven is never forgotten. You see, in a world addicted to validation, it takes a different kind of warrior to stay consistent without an audience. Spirit warriors move differently. They show up without the cameras. They bless others without posting about it. They help, heal, and intercede while the world scrolls past. But here's the thing, God was watching the whole time. The Most High doesn't miss a seed sown in secret, and now He's about to make the harvest undeniable. There's a powerful biblical principle in Matthew 6:4 that says, "Your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you openly." That's not poetic fluff, that's divine protocol. When you obeyed in private, God wrote it down in permanent ink. Every time you humbled yourself, when you had every reason to clap back, He noted that. Every time you stayed behind to clean up, to encourage someone, to keep going when your name wasn't even mentioned, He marked it. You weren't being ignored. You were being recorded in heaven's archives. What's wild is people thought you were invisible. Some even assumed you were weak because you weren't loud, because you weren't chasing applause. But Earth Angel, they misunderstood silence for insignificance. And now God's about to show them how wrong they were. You didn't have to beg for attention. You didn't have to fake anything. Your faithfulness spoke for itself. That's the kind of currency that moves angels. Psychologists talk about intrinsic motivation. That's the drive to do something because it's meaningful to you, not because of external rewards. You embodied that. While the world chased trends and trophies, you chased truth. You followed your spiritual GPS even when it led you through valleys. That's why this next chapter of your life is about divine reversal. Where you were overlooked, you'll be highlighted. Where you were dismissed, you'll be celebrated. But here's the twist. Your celebration won't just be for you. It will be a sign to others. God is about to use you as a walking billboard of his faithfulness. People are going to wonder how you're getting blessed so publicly. They'll whisper, "Wasn't that the one who was always in the background?" And the answer will be yes. You were in the background because God was building a backdrop. Now he's ready to place you center stage, not for ego, but for impact. Spirit warriors, your reward will match your obedience, not your platform, not your followers, not your likes, your obedience. And that's what makes it supernatural. Because nobody can take credit for what's about to happen in your life. Not man, not systems, not luck. Only God. So if you've been wondering if it was all worth it, if all those quiet moments mattered, the answer is yes. And the proof is on the way. Don't be surprised when doors open that you didn't even knock on. Don't be shocked when people start honoring what they once ignored. You were tested in the shadows, and now you're about to shine in the light. Because obedience, Earth Angel, is never wasted. It's just stored, and heaven is releasing what's been reserved for such a time as this. Keep your eyes up. The public reward is coming. Point 5. You passed the wilderness test. Spirit warriors, let's talk about your wilderness, not the scenic kind, not the Instagrammable kind. I mean the real one, the dry, silent, soul-stretching season that tested every ounce of your being. You went through the dry place and didn't turn bitter. That's not just strength. That's spiritual endurance. You walked through your personal desert with no map, no help, and not a single confirmation that you were even headed in the right direction, and yet you trusted. You moved with nothing but faith. You believed not because of the signs, but despite the silence. Now, here's the thing about wilderness seasons. They are divinely strategic. In ancient times, warriors were never sent into battle without first being trained in isolation. The desert, Earth Angel, was never designed to destroy you. It was designed to develop you. Look at the biblical narrative. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before leading a nation. Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness before beginning his ministry. The wilderness is not the punishment, it's the preparation. And you didn't curse God in the desert. You didn't fold. You didn't sell your soul for quick comfort. You stayed. You fought the invisible battles. You faced the whispers of doubt, the cold silence of heaven, and the heat of pressure, and still you did not break. You chose trust over trauma. You chose patience over panic. And that choice, Earth Angel, rewired your soul. While others built brands, you built character. While others chased platforms, you chased purpose. And now, the soil of your spirit is ready. You've been fortified. Science tells us that long exposure to isolation physically rewires the brain. It either sharpens resilience or triggers collapse. But spiritually, that isolation created a channel between you and the divine that no noise can interrupt. Your discernment deepened, your intuition sharpened. You learned how to recognize truth without needing proof. That's rare. That's divine. That's spirit warrior territory. And now the shift begins. God is taking you out of obscurity and into visibility, not because you hustled, but because you healed. The promised land isn't just a metaphor. It's the space where your preparation meets your purpose. It's that season where closed doors start opening, not because you knocked harder, but because you outgrew the hallway. It's when what once drained you can't even reach you anymore. Don't be surprised when people who once overlooked you suddenly act like they've always seen your light. That's part of the journey. The same ones who doubted you in the desert will try to attach themselves to your abundance, but you'll know the difference now. You've developed sacred eyes, ones that can see beyond charisma and into character. That's the true fruit of your wilderness walk. And let's not forget the most powerful part. You didn't become bitter. Do you know how rare that is? Most people let pain harden them, but you stayed soft in a world that wanted to break you. You kept your heart open, your hands clean, and your spirit pure. That is spiritual mastery. That is heaven's fingerprint on your soul. So now, Earth Angel, walk boldly. The wilderness trained your feet for the mountain. You've graduated from survival to significance. The promised land isn't coming, it's here. And this time, you're not walking in as a beggar. You're walking in as an heir. Everything the enemy tried to use to bury you only fertilized your destiny. And now the ground is breaking, not beneath you, but for you. Let them wonder how you made it. Let them whisper, but you know the truth. It was never about being seen. It was about being ready. Welcome home, spirit warrior. The desert season is over. Now watch God move. Point 6, you stayed humble in the climb. Spirit warriors, let's talk about something holy that's happening in your life right now. Something only a few will understand. As God started lifting you, elevating you from the background to the forefront, you didn't let pride sneak in. You didn't post flashy pictures to say, "Look at me." You didn't shout, "I told you so," to those who doubted you. You stayed low, stayed kind, and stayed quiet. And guess what? Heaven noticed. God saw that when the blessing started flowing, you didn't worship the blessing. You praised the one who gave it. And you passed a spiritual test most people fail. See, it's easy to be humble when you're struggling. It's easy to call on God when the rent's due, when the doors are slamming shut, when people are ghosting you and your prayers sound more like desperate whispers, but the real test comes after the breakthrough. When the bank account changes, when your name starts circulating in rooms you've never even stepped foot in, when people start calling you chosen because they finally see what God saw in you all along, that's when pride tries to creep in like a serpent. That's when ego whispers, "This is your doing, you earned this," but not you, spirit warrior. You gave God the glory. You didn't let pride sit on the throne of your heart. And because of that, because you remained grounded in gratitude and anchored in obedience, He can now trust you with more. Not just more material, but spiritual authority, wisdom, discernment, influence that touches hearts instead of just grabbing attention. You're entering a dimension of favor that isn't open to everyone. It's reserved for the humble. They surrendered. The ones who didn't just want the spotlight, they wanted to reflect His light. This is a biblical principle. James 4:6 says, "God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble." That means pride doesn't just delay your blessing, it actually repels divine favor. But humility opens floodgates. Humility says, even if I'm chosen, I'm still a servant. Humility keeps your hands open to give, not just to receive. And God says, now that is someone I can trust with kingdom assignments. Think of Joseph, thrown in a pit by his own brothers, falsely accused, imprisoned, and forgotten. And yet when he was elevated to second in command of Egypt, he never took credit. He said, "It was not me, but God who gave Pharaoh the interpretation." That's why he was trusted with the preservation of nations. And that's where you're headed. You're not just stepping into success, you're stepping into legacy. Your story is about to impact lives you've never met. That ripple effect of obedience, it's already spreading. But here's what's beautiful. You're not even doing it for the applause. You're doing it because you love Him. You're doing it because your soul remembers where you came from, those dark nights when only God answered the phone, those seasons when nobody clapped, but heaven did. You didn't wait to be seen to be faithful. That's the next level you're stepping into. It's going to feel like divine alignment, not random luck. And listen, Earth Angel, this level comes with more favor, yes, but it also comes with more responsibility, more eyes, more spiritual warfare. But don't worry, you've been battle tested. This wasn't overnight. God built you for this, quietly, carefully, with precision. That anointing on your life is about to shake things in the spirit realm. And you'll know you've arrived not because people cheer, but because demons scatter. So walk humbly, spirit warrior. Keep your heart clean. Keep your spirit low before God and your hands lifted high in praise. Because what is He about to pour into your life? Only the humble can hold it without it spilling into pride. And you've proven you're ready. Point 7, you refused to bow to fear. Fear came for you. Doubt tried to paralyze you. It whispered lies in the dark, dressed up as reason, logic, and caution. It came wearing the face of people you trusted, voices that told you to play small, be realistic and know your place. But you didn't stop. You didn't fold. You didn't shrink. You kept moving. And that, Earth Angel, wasn't just resilience. That was divine fire. That was Holy Spirit courage burning through your spirit like a silent wildfire. Here's the thing most people don't understand. Courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. Real courage is choosing to walk anyway, even when fear is screaming, even when your knees are shaking. According to psychology, fear activates the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for fight, flight, or freeze. But you didn't run. You didn't freeze. You chose faith over flight. And when you do that consistently, something supernatural begins to happen. Heaven backs you. The Holy Spirit, the very breath of God, infuses your actions with power beyond your own strength. And that's exactly what's happening now. Because you didn't bow to fear, now the giants are bowing to you, not because you're loud, not because you're flashy, but because your obedience made you dangerous. That giant of lack, bowing. That mountain of rejection, bowing. The cycles of generational pain, trauma, and silence, all kneeling before the God inside you. Every time you chose prayer over panic, wisdom over worry, and stillness over chaos, you dismantled the enemy's plan without even lifting a finger. In the Bible, David faced Goliath not with armor, but with a sling and a stone, and most importantly, faith. The Spirit of God made that one stone strike like a divine missile. That's what happens when heaven moves with you. An earth angel, that's what's happening now. You're not just breaking through for yourself. You're shifting the atmosphere. You're freeing generations. You're making the enemy nervous. There's a spiritual law that's often overlooked. When the righteous stand firm, heaven responds with recompense. So now as you've moved forward, heaven is realigning the battlefield. You were once the one trembling, unsure, praying for light. But now look, you are the light. You are the one others look to. The enemy thought fear would break you, but fear built you. So keep walking, spirit warrior. Keep showing up, armored in truth and lit with holy fire. Because the same God that carried you through the shadows is now clearing your path. And those giants that once mocked you, they've recognized the Spirit in you. And they're bowing, just like they did before the King. Spirit warriors, hear me clearly. Heaven is not ignoring your pain. God is not blind to your obedience. Your reward season isn't coming, it's here. This is not just a blessing, it's a divine compensation for every silent battle you endured. You didn't just survive, chosen one, you transformed. Every storm you weathered, every betrayal you endured, and every night you cried out to God in silence shaped you. You were never being punished. You were being prepared. What looked like loss was actually the chiseling away of all that wasn't meant for your destiny. That pain, it refined you. That isolation, it elevated your discernment. That delay, it protected you from lesser paths. So when the blessings start pouring in, the divine connections, the peace you've been craving, the doors you didn't even knock on, don't flinch, don't question whether you're worthy, and definitely don't apologize. You didn't stumble into the season of favor, you were in fire for it. The Bible says in Galatians 6:9, let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not give up. That season is here. God is not just faithful, he is just. He cannot deny himself, and he can't help but honor those who reflect his heart. You stood firm when you could have lashed out. You kept loving when hate would have been easier. You walked with integrity even when no one was watching. And that did not go unnoticed. Heaven keeps receipts. Understand this? You're not being favored out of luck or randomness. You're reaping what you've sown in faith. This is not karma. This is kingdom. So stay awake, stay ready, stay humble. The enemy hoped you'd give up before the harvest, but you didn't. And now it's God's turn to show up for you in ways that no man, no system, and no devil can block. When you start seeing sudden shifts and unexplainable favor, don't shrink back. Expand, rise, shine. Isaiah 61 says, arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. That's your verse. That's your time. You've graduated from survival mode. This is your transformation season. You've been hidden, but now you'll be highlighted, not for vanity, but for purpose. If this stirred something deep in your spirit, type, I receive in the comments. Like and share this with another chosen, one who needs to be reminded their waiting was not wasted, their prayers were not pointless. The reward is on the way. Stay in the light, spirit warriors. The mission has only just begun, but this time you're walking with divine authority, heavenly backup, and a glow no darkness can dim.